Testing, testing.
Good morning. This meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. This meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, and the time is 10:01 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Shahardi,
Here.
Commissioner Potier,
Here.
Commissioner Jeffers,
Here.
Commissioner Vercher, Commissioner Wood.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Thank you. There being no old business to take up at this time, we'll now move on to the approval of the minutes of the April 19th, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I move that we approve the minutes of April 19th, 2023.
we have a motion for the approval of the minutes. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now move on to the consideration of change orders.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 564 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 541 and place 23 in pending status. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready for a
Yes,
motion.
please do.
I would move that we accept the staff recommendations and approve 541 change orders and place 23 in pending status.
There is a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider prior pending change orders.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 50 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 19 and keep 31 remaining in pending status. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept staff recommendation, approve 19 of the 50 prior pending change orders, place 31 back in pending status.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider tax sale cancellations.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 1 tax sale cancellation in Lafourche Parish due to being sold in error. Staff requests approval of 1 tax sale cancellation.
We have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go
I
ahead.
move approval of one tax sale cancellation in Lafourche Parish based on staff's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider the calendar year 2022 second quarter supplemental tax roll for tax years 2019 through 2022 for Orleans Parish.
Good morning, Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Staff has received and reviewed the supplemental tax rolls for Orleans Parish. These properties were omitted and or erroneously assessed for the applicable tax years. The assessor has provided an affidavit certifying that the information contained in the supplemental tax rolls is correct to the best of his knowledge and that all affected taxpayers were timely notified. A quietus and a Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Letter is not required for supplemental rolls. And also please note that the LTC values such as our public service numbers, banks, and insurance numbers did not change. The supplemental electronic rolls received were balanced, and we also received the TC 33 abstract reports and the millage reports. Staff requests approval of the Orleans Parish supplemental tax rolls for calendar year 2022 second quarter for tax years 2019 through 2022.
Are there any questions? All right, there being no questions, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if I'm in order, I would move, based on staff recommendations and the presentation, that we approve for the calendar year 2022 the second quarter supplemental tax roll for the years 2019 through 2022 for Orleans Parish.
We have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now move on to the appeal portion of our docket. The appeal of Falstaff Associates One LLC versus Assessor Errol Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 22-22171-001. I'd let the record reflect that there is no one here this morning on behalf of the taxpayer. Taxpayer did file some information regarding the property with the Board of Review, but I do not, and submitted it to our staff appraiser, but not formally file anything, I don't believe, if I'm correct, with the commission. Is that correct, Ms. Banks?
And Chairman,
Yeah.
just as an aside, I'm going to swear Ms. Malvo in real quick. She just received a call from the taxpayer.
Okay.
I'd like to let her.
Oh, okay,
explain
that's
the
fine. Why don't you go ahead and swear everybody in?
We'll do it.
And do that now, and then we'll let Ms. Malvo be able to testify what the phone call was.
I do, Tanisha Malvo.
Mike Cater, I do.
Russell Ambrose, I do.
All right, Mark and Reed, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mark
I do.
and Reed.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's start by hearing what Ms. Malvo has to tell us.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. We just received a phone call from the taxpayer representative, Mr. Miller, concerning Falstaff Associates LLC. For some reason, he was under the impression that he could do his testimony by Zoom or by telephone. And I told him, no, sir, it's an in-person, or either you choose not to show up, whatever the case may be. But it is an in-person hearing for the participants in the appeals. And so I'm not really sure what he wants to do. We didn't really get the chance to finish the conversation because I had to come back and testify concerning the tax rolls. But sounds like he's okay with proceeding with the matter. He didn't specifically request for a continuance either, but I didn't give him that option as due to the lack of time we had to communicate.
Well, there's nothing in our communication with the taxpayer that indicates anything about a remote testimony
No,
or by telephone.
there is not.
There is nothing. So that would not be a good reason for a continuance. Unless there's some objection from the commissioners, I would recommend that we move forward on this appeal.
And I will let him know. I'm gonna call him back and tell him he can just watch the live stream to
He
see
can
how
watch the
everything
live-
unfolds.
And I believe he had filed some documents or exhibits with the Board of Review.
That is correct.
And I believe some of that, if not all, was communicated to Mr. Cater, our appraiser. I think he used some of their financial statements. Is that correct, Mr. Cater?
I received financial statements as part of the appeal.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, good. All right, thank you. Okay.
And
that's
that's
fine.
what was also filed to the office.
Right, okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll move forward, and we'll hear about those financial statements, all Mr. Cater testifies. Mr. Alvarez, on behalf of the assessor's office, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the assessor's office took a look at the information provided to our office by staff, the staff's appraisal, did a recalculation of our valuations, and we're in agreement with the staff's appraisal. It's within 10% of our initial value. We have no objection to it.
So the assessor's office is in agreement with our staff appraisal, which is $5,143,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cater, you want to, anything else, Mr. Alvarez?
No, I think our initial valuation was more of a pro forma approach, and when you take the actuals, it comes in right around where the staff's appraisal was, so I think it's a more accurate number.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
We have one, did the taxpayer, did you have some conversation with the taxpayer? Did you know that he would not be here today or anything?
No, sir, I didn't have any conversations with the taxpayer. Was not able to reach him after trying to call him, and we did not receive any information from the taxpayer as far as their exhibits.
Thank you.
All right, let's, Mr. Cater, why don't you tell us about, your appraisal?
Okay, Mike Cater, Louisiana Tax
And-
Commission.
and Talk a little closer to the microphone.
I made a typical inspection of the subject property on December the 8th, 2022. Property was determined to be a low-income tax credit property and should be valued by the income approach. I reviewed the audited financials submitted with the appeal. Once I determined the effective gross income and allowed expenses, I realized the expenses were over 82% of the gross income, which exceeded our typical guidelines as far as the ranges of allowable expenses. I decided to use that market data. I selected the highest value range at 70%. After making those required calculations and determined the net operating income, I applied that to the capitalization rate. I came out with a total overall value of the property of $5,143,000, of which $1,077,600 was land, which was as assessed, which left $4,065,400 for the improvements.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
I move on docket number 22-22171-001 that the fair market value be set at, with land at one.
All right. All right, go ahead, Ms. Malvo. Yeah, put it on the record.
I did speak with the tax rep, Mr. Miller, and he said that he does not object to us proceeding with the matter and just accepts whatever finding.
Did he agree to a value or he just said he's okay with us proceeding with the,
He, okay with proceeding with
okay,
the matter.
great, thank you. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get Mr. Cater to ask him one question. before
Sure.
we make the motion.
yeah, go
Put
ahead,
this
sure,
on the record.
sure.
Mr. Cater, just real quick, and I know the affordable housing is a little different than normal. Can you tell us for the record, the tier and the capitalization rate that you used?
I believe this was a tier 2 property. Tier 2 properties range from 6.5% to 7.5%, and I selected mid-range at 7%.
And that's pretty standard for the affordable housing appraisals, am I correct?
That is correct. That's pretty much standard for the work we do.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, Ms. Poche, if you want to go ahead and
Okay, Mr.
start over.
Yes. Mhm. Mr. Chairman, I move on docket number 22-22171-001 that the fair market value be set at, for land at $1,077,600, improvements set at $4,065,400, with a total value at $5,143,000.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. Thank you. The next item on the docket, the appeal of 717 Barracks LLC versus Assessor Errol Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 22-22172-005. And give me one moment. All right, let's note for the record that there's no one here this morning on behalf of the property owner and taxpayer. The taxpayer did file some exhibits with us, and that's part of the record as well. That said, we'll go ahead and hear from Mr. Alvarez on behalf of the assessor's office.
The assessor's office is in agreement with the tax commission staff appraisal value. Our evaluation is was an erroneous valuation.
So the assessor's office is in agreement with this, a total value of the property of $737,100.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Gillespie, you want to tell us about your appraisal?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I appraised the property at 717 Barrack Street. It's a guest house is what they call it. It's like a small hotel. Determined the overall value to be $737,100. The land value, $133,900, and the improvement value, $603,200.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions?
I
All
had
right,
just
go-
one question.
Sure, go ahead.
I know in the value of the daily room rate, we used $118 per night was used. And then on an addendum that was supplied apparently by the taxpayer and is dated Monday, February 13th, 2023, it shows a $93 a day rate. I'm not
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
the timing is the issue.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. The value, if you look on, let's see, let me find it on my report here. On page, let's see, what page is this? On page 11 of my report, the Royal Barracks Guest House is located in New Orleans, French Quarter, offers 6 guest room. Average daily rate was provided of $118 was provided by the guest house website. Now the average daily rate is used to determine the potential gross income. And then essentially after the potential gross income is established, the occupancy rate will determine what maybe the actual average daily rate may have been at the time when they completed their financial statements. So that's why $118 was used.
So the potential gross income is based on what's advertised on their website.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you deduct occupancy or adjust for occupancy from that number since the.
Right. And that essentially takes it down to probably what their actual average daily rate was, which I think was $93. Or their average, I'm sorry, let's call it their average income from rooms after the occupancy is removed.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Any more
Yes.
questions? All right, no more questions. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I move on docket number 22-22172-005 that the fair market value be set at the LTC staff appraisal, setting land at $133,900, improvements $603,200, for a total fair market value of $737,100.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now hear the appeal of Britannia Investments Properties LLC versus Assessor Errol Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 22-22172-009. Again, give me one moment. All right, let the record reflect that the taxpayer, or taxpayer representative, neither is here, this morning, on behalf of the appeal. So, we'll go to, Mr. Alvarez and ask him to, make his presentation.
Mr. Chairman, what docket number was that?
I'm reading the docket number off it's Britannia Investment Properties. The two, items C and D that may be on your docket were withdrawn. So we're on item E, which is Britannia Investment Properties versus Errol Williams, Orange Parish Board of Review, 22-22172-009. That's a different than what's on the docket sheet. Okay, it's misprinted on on my docket sheet. So the correct docket number is 22-22176-013. So I have bad information on my docket sheet. Could hold on one second. All right, we have that straight now. Mr. Alvarez, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the assessor's office initially valued the property at $1,170,000, which was upheld by the Board of Review. It came to our attention later that the property suffered damage from Hurricane Ida, some severe damage with a power pole falling on the building. We determined that the property is in poor condition. As of December of 22, it was still listed in MLS for $2.2 million. The property has some severe damage, which would indicate that our initial valuation should be reduced. The taxpayers' requested value was $729,400. $319,400 for the land, $410,000 for the building, and we issued a settlement offer to the taxpayer in that amount. The only issue that we had, well, we had two issues really with the staff appraisal, was that the land was high. Our value for the land was $319,400, which was a uniform land rate, and the staff's appraisal comes in about $400,000 even. And there was a cost approach value that was used to with substantial depreciation because the subject is over 100 years old with damage to Hurricane Ida. I think that's where the value, Mr. Huval's appraisal comes in at the 560. We ran a value of through MLS of sales and poor and fair condition within 3/4 of a mile, and that would substantiate a value of slightly less than our initial value of 917. Hence, with the extra damage from Hurricane Ida, we made that offer to the taxpayer for his initial request. So we would request that the tax commission give the taxpayer his requested value, the $319,400 for the land, $410,000 for the building, for a total fair market value $729,400.
What was the taxpayer's response when you tried to settle at his request?
He was fine with it, and then he received the appraisal from Mr. Huval, which was lower, and then that went out the window because obviously he's going to want the best number he can get.
Well, let me address my concerns. First off, this is a commercial piece of property. It's a commercial building. Land value matters. And according to our staff appraisal, and Mr. Huval will be able to testify to this in a few moments, determine the fair market value is $400,000.
Mhm.
That makes a huge difference in the valuation of commercial property. Because the land is valued at assessed at 10%, while the improvements are assessed at 15%. And I understand the assessor's office argument about uniformity, but the problem is uniformly wrong is still wrong.
Mhm.
And that is my concern with that. It would, the taxpayer was willing to accept his requested value. Then that might be might be something different. I have concerns. I'd like to hear from the rest of the commissioners, but I just have a concern about the land value, and I do want to hear, from Mr. Hubal, regarding how he conducted his appraisal. So, anyway, does anybody else have any questions or anything they'd like to say? Mr. Alvarez, you look like maybe you want to say something.
Just to reiterate the fact that as of December, 5 months ago, the property is still actively listed on MLS for $2.2 million. I know list price has nothing to do with
nothing to
overall
do with that.
value. I just wanted
My
to,
house is for sale for $7 million.
I just wanted that on the record, that's all.
No, it ain't worse. I wish it was worth $7 million, but it ain't worth $7 million. So anyway, all right, Mr. Hubal, let's hear from you.
Yes, I did an appraisal of 3706 Pertania Street. I valued the land. It was not disputed, but we were required to go ahead and do a land analysis. And with the sales that I came up with a range of $32.02 to $36.26. And I called it $35 per square foot. And that came up to 400,000. And then on the improvement part, there were lack of sales in the area for the improvement. So I did the cost approach. And when I applied the cost approach, the total value came up to $560,000, which, the land was 400, like I said, 400,000, and the improvement was 160,000.
How do you feel that about the $160,000? Do you think that is a fair valuation of the building?
Yes, sir. If you look at the pictures, the building is in very poor shape. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to it to bring it up to, I think, usable. It's all boarded up and you can't really see inside the building or anything like that. There's a lot of damage to it that needs to be taken care of. So I would agree with it being in poor condition.
Would you say the building borders on a tear down?
It's close, I would say, I don't, there's no reports of that was submitted to me for rehab or anything on it, but it's in pretty bad shape.
All right. All right, do we have any discussion, any questions from the commissioners? Mr. Alvarez, go ahead.
Just in the spirit of sharing all the information that we have, the taxpayer did provide us with interior photos of the property. It does appear to be in a somewhat gutted condition.
I think we saw some photos that were submitted. I don't remember exactly where I saw them from, but it looked to be in pretty deplorable condition on the interior.
Yes, sir. It's
disrespect to
it's
the
mostly
man's
gutted
property.
on the inside.
Okay. All right, well, what, do we have any commissioners have anything they want to say or,
I'm inclined to go with the LTC value.
okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, in the matter of docket number 2222176013, I would move that we set the land value at 400,000, improvements at 160,000, for a fair market total of $560,000.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. I believe that concludes our docket for today. All right. Therefore, there's no other matters to come before the commission at this time. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adjournment.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion, we adjourned at 10:30 a.m.